Good. Who has had the idea of this conference? Who? Because I want to give him a medal. No, because it's a fantastic timing. On Thursday morning, we are voting, probably to get for the first time something which can really fly and make a difference on energy poverty. So that you were able to be here 2 days before is really good timing, because we need still some additional pressure. So my name is Claude Thomas. I'm a member for the Green Party, but I'm trying always to, in a certain sense, to build broad coalitions. And I think what is really great is also that this conference is organized what I will always call the progressive camp in this House. So thank you also for all the other political groups joining us today. I will not, I think you are better placed than me on the urgency of energy poverty, what needs to be needed. What is the only expertise or what I can bring is, what is my political analysis? Why, after 10, 15 years of talking about energy poverty, we didn't get anywhere? My political analysis is the following. We have a left-right divide. I think the right wing is often anyway less interested in social issues and the less vulnerable. And we have another divide, which is Europe or national. So, and it is this second divide which makes it, because I think we can defeat some of the more, so that's my fan club coming, so that's hello. So we can divide, we can have a majority in this House on the issue of energy poverty, and the right to energy is important. What will be much more difficult is, because we are in a negotiation process between the European Parliament on one hand and the Member States on the other hand, how can we get to a concept around energy poverty which will deliver something at the end of the negotiations? That is, and in that you need two axes of analysis. One is the left-right, and the second one is the Europe-national divide. And our problem is that the progressive Scandinavian countries don't want anything from Brussels on energy poverty. You have, and I think maybe that's also true then for part of the Dutch government, so which means you have those countries or which are more with right-wing governments and part of the central and district governments which don't want anything, and they then get in the council a political majority because Scandinavia is joining them. And therefore, when you look to the compromise which basically we have worked on and which we will vote on Thursday, the notion, so we need two things. We need a definition, and then we need, and that's something which we have to accept, we need an opt-out for those governments who are able to prove that they have already enough policy underway at home to tackle the problem of energy poverty. And if we are frank, not all of us will like that, but my political experience in this House, my political experience from having negotiated a lot of co-decision is, if we don't have this approach of a definition plus concrete action plans for those who have a problem, plus an opt-out for those who can prove that they don't have a problem, we can have a lot of nice conferences like today, but politically we will not end with any concrete result. And that is a bit what we are trying to do now in the energy governance vote. And you understand, for those who are deeper, we have two compromises on the table. One compromise has been tabled by GUE and EFDD, which has, under Article 2, a definition and then reporting obligations, and but the Liberals, who are swing, because EPP and ECR are anyway very sceptical to anything, and especially also on energy poverty. So the only way probably to get a majority on Thursday is then the other amendment, or at least I would put it the other way around. If you do your job correctly between now and Thursday, we may have a political majority for the more far-going compromise, which has an explicit definition under Article 2. But I didn't want to end up with losing everything if we don't have a majority. So, and that's the reason why we have done a compromise agreement which has the yardstick for a government to show that it is not obliged to do reporting on energy poverty. So the fact that it is good enough at home to tackle energy poverty in a recital, which is less good, I admit that, but it is still something with which we can enter the negotiations. So that is a bit the philosophy behind. And frankly, I have to really attribute to all of you, without your constant efforts, I think the Liberal group would never have accepted the compromise which is there. So it is also because we are able to work together, dedicated members of parliament like Cornelia and I hope myself, and a network of people from the national level, from the European level, to push the things. So that's a bit what I hope that we can win. And then, of course, we need to be vigilant in January when we go to plenary. And then I propose that somewhere end of January, beginning of February, we do a strategy meeting here in Brussels with all the energy poverty networks, because the real stumbling block is not the European Parliament. The real stumbling block is the Council, and we need then a strategy to bring a maximum of pressure on a maximum of governments, so that in the negotiations we are able to win what we win, hopefully win on Thursday and in the plenary in January. Thank you very much.
Good morning to everybody. Thanks Mr. Turmes for this welcoming word. Indeed, we now have to work all together, the progressive side, as you were saying, to build up this coalition and to tackle energy poverty. And we have a very good timing now, which is coming. So maybe before opening this, the first panel on the right to energy, and then the second panel, which is going to focus on the need to renovate buildings to fight energy poverty, I would like to say a few words about the coalition and the right to energy coalition. First, maybe just, my name is Guillaume Duriveau, and I represent EPSU, which is the European Federation of Public Services Unions. But today I'm going to speak on behalf of the Right to Energy coalition. First, I would like to thank many people, because it's not so easy to organize such an event right before a very important and crucial vote, which is going to take place this week. So first, I would like to thank all of you. I would like to thank Mr. Turmes for his welcoming words, but I would also like to thank Mrs. Ernst, but also Mrs. Griffin, Mr. Yavor, and Mr. Tamburano, because as you can see, this event is a co-hosted event in the European Parliament, putting together several political groups on such important issue. And I think it's very important, and once again, many thanks for this. I think this is the right way to move forward this crucial issue. Just maybe a word about the coalition, because the coalition is also a kind of ad hoc coalition, putting together unions. EPSU, of course, the public services unions, but the ETUC, the Confederation, but also building and woodworkers, and at the same time, green NGOs, Greenpeace, Friend of the Earth, social platforms, the European Anti-Poverty Networks, for instance, and many other organizations housing Europe. So, Coface families. So, as you can see, a very broad range of associations, organizations that decided to work all together. Why have we decided to work all together? I can identify 3 reasons. First, because energy poverty, energy precarity is an increasing issue for many European citizens. Today, nearly 11% of the EU population faces a situation of energy poverty. It's huge today in such a continent like Europe. Second, because energy poverty, we can explain energy poverty by 3 interconnected causes. First, high energy prices. Then, of course, stagnating income, reducing income, and inefficient homes. And all these 3 issues lead me to a third reason why we have decided to work together, because we have to tackle at the same time all these issues linking social, labour and environmental policies. This is the reason why this Right to Energy coalition makes sense and why we have decided to build up this coalition. We have now been active since spring and we have been doing a lot since then, and I think we can be very proud about that. And I take also this opportunity to thank everybody in the coalition for the great jobs we have been doing all together since spring. Then now, I think we all want to hear our speakers to speak about, for this first panel, which is about the right to energy and how to ensure the right to energy. As a coalition, we have identified 2 key issues to make the right to energy a reality. First, we do believe that we should ban disconnection at all times. Nobody should never be disconnected from the grid at any time, and it's a matter of principle. Then the second point we are advocating, we are promoting as a coalition, is the provision of a minimum basic quantity of energy to all European people living in our countries. This is also something which is extremely important if you want to make sure that everybody lives with dignity. You need a minimum amount of energy, of electricity, to live in dignity, to eat your home, to cool your home, to cook your food. For the basic your basic daily life, you need energy. So as a coalition, these are the 2 pillars, I would say, we are promoting to ensure the right to energy. Of course, we have other ideas. We are promoting other demands. And normally you should be able to see them on the back of a nice paper we have printed for today, which is hopefully coming soon. So as you can see, we have 7 demands in total. And the 2 demands I have just presented are one of belongs to this list. So now I'm going to let our guest speakers to take the floor. Just maybe as an introduction, I would like maybe to present our guest speaker. And today on this panel we have Mrs. Ernst, who is a German MEP from the GUE group. We also have on my left side Georgi Darocci. I'm very sorry if I don't speak Hungarian, so please forgive me about that. So
No. You mix the names, but anyway, we will explain.
Okay, anyway, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So, Gabor Dropa? No, anyway, okay, bon. So, what's your name?
Gabor Darocci and his György Dropa.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry all about surname. Okay. Yes, okay. Mr. Gabor Darocci is going to speak about the structural causes of energy poverty in Hungary. Then Mr. Dropa will present challenges faced by marginalized communities on energy access and on how to overcome them in a very practical way. And here we will target the Roma community. And of course, Mrs. Ernst is going to address and to highlight the EU policy dimension and the key issue for the GUE group on that specific aspect of the right to energy. So I'm going to to give the floor to Mr. Dropa. I'll be sharp. I'm very sorry because we are running. Time is flying, so be on time, please. And I'm going to cut you after a few minutes. So please take the floor.
So I made a PowerPoint presentation and hope you can follow. There is the first message that solving energy poverty will be the biggest human achievement of the 21st century. Believe it. If you could run on with the slides. Yes. Yes. And make it continuously, please. So, people were always facing poverty and was always facing the cold. Please go on and continuously. Yes. And there was a threat that one can freeze, but we never had the riches and the knowledge how to solve this problem, and which is energy poverty. We have now new technologies. Power generation capacity have increased greatly, and Europe produces much more energy than we consume. So practically in the market we have much more energy to sell than to buy. I mean, everybody wants to sell energy and no one wants to buy it. And there is an overproduction in all the countries. So there are new technologies, and these new technologies are making investment, and if you consider it as an unconditional basic income, making local power generation as a subsidy, solving the problem for at least a quarter of a century. And of course there is another involvement if we can solve this problem, because poverty for a number of people living on the street would of course radically decrease. The same with the drinking water. Drinking water shortage often occurs where the energy poverty is present. Introduction of locally generated cheap alternative energies can radically reduce the price of locally produced drinking water. The victims are the people dying not only because of the cold homes, but because of the polluted air in their homes. That's in the case of respiratory illnesses are rising, especially, please turn to the next one, during the winter months and due to the increased unheated homes. Energy poverty has an age-related dimension also. An age-related dimension as the low pension because of the poor health status, discomfort and weakened immune system. If you look at the next map, the next one, you can see that one part of the eastern part of Hungary is very polluted. If one doesn't know Hungary, would say that there is the capital with a lot of traffic and a lot of industry, but it's in the northern center of the country. And this is because of poverty. People are not able to heat their homes, and they are collecting practically everything what is possible. Especially when the winter is long or it's colder, I mean there is no other option. And when the house is cooling, the human body will cool also. You have to take the data dubiously, please. Next one. Yes, in Hungary, because not only the internet has to be checked, but the way of data collection also. We have 28 member states in the European Union, but they are collecting data all in a different way. Next one. While statistical data shows a significant growth in alternative energy, in fact, because Hungary used to have 2-3% and now it dropped up to 13%, but the real reason behind it is that the government wants to fulfill its duty, you know, the 3 times 20. For the year 2020, in each European country, the 20% of the energy should come from the alternatives. but by us the reason of the change is that a lot of people are, because of the poverty, changing from gas to wood. Could you, the next slide? Yes, just take a look at the red line, which is showing that about the gas consumption dropped with 1/3 during a period of 10 years. The reason is that poverty doesn't allow people to pay their gas bill. Next one, please. According to the statistical data collection method, heating with wood belongs to the alternative energy sector. So really the price of gas matters. Citizens abandoning, the next please, abandoning the gas boilers which they brought on expensive way, further damaging their health and the environment while they are burning all types of waste. Practically they are heating with anything which burns. We fight air pollution and poverty together. Next one, please. To solve this problem, the government is planning to prohibit the use of mixed heating. Next one, please. Mixed heating from the year 2020. But the cold, of course, is not afraid of the prohibition, and the poor have no other option. What will happen to the poor if we cannot afford the gas heating? And then I want to go to the nuclear, if you could. There's a lot of people waiting for food, and of course they don't care how, in what way will they heat their home. Next one, please. The present Hungarian government, the next one, please. This is the Paks nuclear power plant surrounded by a lot of flowers. The Hungarian government is strictly committed to build 2 nuclear reactors from Russian credit. Presently, more than 40% of the energy production comes from the 4 reactor from Paks. Next one, please. Operation of which recently has been extended by 20 more years. The agreement with the new agreement with the Russian Rosatom is encrypted to build 2 additional 1,200 megawatt reactors. How it will fit into the system sounds really impossible. The next one, please. It is strongly assumed that the investment... Next one, please. Investment is a hotbed of corruption. Houses must be well insulated. Next one, please. The really poor have no reserves. Their homes are not insulated, and the wind is wandering under their doors and windows. The insulation of buildings is a long-term investment which protects from wasting of energy. Next one, please. The technology of building insulation process is mainly an unskilled work. New jobs would be created at European level, while there are millions of unemployed all over Europe. Most of the insulation and construction work would be needed in areas where the rate of unemployment is the highest. Local energy production and insulation of home must go hand in hand. Next one, please. Political decision must come first. The right to housing must be a constitutional right. The first step should be made by the parliamentarians. And I think that is why we are here. And finally, I want to speak about some slogans. Eat or heat is not our choice for sure. Heated rooms for all European families. Power to the people and power against poverty. And I hope I fitted into my time limit.
Yes, perfectly. Thanks for that. Well, now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Darocci and to address a project on the bringer of light, if I'm right?
Light bringers.
Light bringers? Okay, thanks.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. If I may ask for the another presentation on the computer. It's on. I was told that it's on the computer. Anyway, just a few sentences about myself. I'm from Roma origin. I'm a Hungarian citizen. And I used to direct the Roma Veritas Foundation for 8 years. And the program I'm going to talk is co-developed with students and ex-students. Can we go back one, please? And I'm asking you for a 10-second game, okay? I am asking you to close your eyes. All of you, please, you too. Just close your eyes. Imagine that it's total darkness, and when you open your eyes, this is the only one light in the room, a piece of candle. And this is what you need to use. Open your eyes, please. And you use the light of a single candle to do the everyday work what it's needed to be done. To feed your children, to find your clothes in the morning hours, and even for the children to write their homework. And it's not a stupid game, but it's the everyday reality for 10,000s of Hungarian, and I'm afraid that not only the Hungarian, citizens. Many of them are Roma. I'm very, very happy that the first point in the energy pack is to provide the definition of energy poverty. Next, please. Because we don't have a correct definition. There is one. I'm sure that you know them. Both of them was made 9 and 10 years ago in the UK, but we don't really want to use it, at least in Hungary. We say that those households are in energy poverty where, after paying the bills, there is not enough money left to cover other living expenses. And other living expenses can be various, really various. Next one, please. And a few words about the numbers. According to Eurostat, last year, 9.2% of the Hungarian population couldn't keep their homes warm during the winter time, and this is about at least 900,000 people. So when we are talking about energy poverty, it's not only a very thin strata in the Hungarian or whatever society, but it's a mass of people. And as it was mentioned, there is at least 2 different parts of families directly approached by this phenomenon. One is those families with several children, and those families with single parents. And it's a quite Central and Eastern European phenomenon that children from poor families, especially if they are Roma, then their children can be taken out from families and put into state care, especially if it can be served or seen as a action to make the families to keep the so-called order. And the primary reason many times it's simple financial reason. And I really would like to go in details with this, but I'm sure that you have heard many things about Hungary. But Hungary is the best field to study and to learn about the so-called pervert redistribution system. And it's very, very crazy. There is one program. The Hungarian government gives 10 million Hungarian forint to those families which have at least 3 children, and they do have the necessary incomes and own contribution to build a house. And I always asking all of my friends, how many Roma families do they know who are ready and able to take this fund? And extremely funny, but I am the only one, and I don't really need it. And none of my friends living in small villages, living in real poverty, they are not able to be the subject of this program. Next one, please. It's not about simple about the population of Hungary, but about the situation of Roma. There is no running water in some houses. 2% for the general population, for the non-Roma, which is 21% for the Roma population. There is no toilet in 6% of non-Roma families' houses, which is 32%, almost one-third among Roma families. And the number of persons per room, it's almost the double in all cases. So 18% of non-Roma living in a flat with only one room, which is, it's 9% of non-Roma with only one room, and this is 18% for us. Next one, please. Living in poor quality, ruined housing and housing conditions, which means extremely hard living conditions. It's 8% for non-Roma and 29% for Roma. And this additional problem that the lack of adequate heating and the heating with wood. You have just seen the problem of wood. First of all, it's not that cheap. Second one, it's polluting. Third one, the Hungarian government counts this as a green energy. Don't ask me why. And the biggest problem is that there is a national support program, which is a deduction from utility costs, and it's mainly used for gas and electricity bills, but it can be used for those who are heating their homes with wood. And in case of Roma, it's 81% using only wood for heating. And the public utility debt, it's really big. Among non-Roma, it's 23%, and among Roma, it's 50%. Next one, please. And what do we do? The next one, I'm not going to talk about this. So we are a set of Roma university students and ex-students, and we just developed something. Those Roma who could reach university, they are the top of the cream of the top and the elite, less than 1% or around 1%. But another 99% of Roma, they also need help. So we developed a program called Lightbringers, and we do nothing else but bring solar panels, LED stripes, and the knowledge into the poorest Roma communities. And as you can see, there is a ex-student. Half of the groups standing there are ex-students. And we are teaching ordinary Roma people living in the ghettos how to build a 12-volt running system. And they can use this to give energy to LED stripes and everything which uses 12 volts, including mobile phones or everything else. Next picture, please. And you can see one of the youngest students we have ever had, the girl in the middle. And later on, she learned how to make a lighting body. Yeah, next one, please. Yeah, and you can see on the top, and this is a empty bottle, plastic bottle, what she made. And right now we are in a process to create a revolving fund where they can buy these kits, they can start to use it, and by paying back, they are creating a financial fund to buy the next kits for the next families, and so on and so on. My time has run up. Thank you for your attention, and we will be here to trying to answer all of your questions.
Thanks a lot for your presentation, very inspiring project. Now, Mrs. Ernst, if you would like to say a few words about the right to energy, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I will speak in my home language. I should like to say, first of all, that I'm extremely happy to find myself next to Hungarian guests in Leipzig, in eastern Germany. We have a project that addresses Roma villages and that also addresses the issues that you mentioned, and we cooperate closely. You might think that Hungary and Germany are totally different, but you will be amazed to hear that the situation is entirely different. First of all, I'm very happy that we have a complete coalition here. Theresa Griffin is here, who made the excellent report about energy poverty, and then, of course, our Italian colleague Dario Tamburano, and my colleague from the GUE group, Xavier Benito Ziluaga. He bears with me if I mispronounce his name. Let me start in a different way. Our group too welcomed that the social pillar of Jean-Claude Juncker has become a discussion item, and I should like to remind you of the fact that it was the GUE group, amongst others, when the discussion about the Lisbon Treaty was started, to call for a social union, not only a monetary union, but a social union which defines minimum social standards and rights in Europe when it comes to social rights. A social progress clause was proposed, and as you all know, we didn't get it through. The progress clause has never become part of the treaties. With this clause, it would have been possible to really see whether the existing treaties are in conformity with the standards. We now have an enormous gap between the poor and the rich, not only between member states, but also within member states, including Germany. And if we look at the 20 Juncker principles, we see that energy poverty is on the 20th position, the last one, which says that everybody has the right to water, sanitary installations and energy. Well, this is better than nothing, but not enough and not concrete enough. This is why it is important to say that the access to affordable energy is not something that can be taken for granted. It is a right. If we look around in Europe, 54 million in Europe are directly affected by energy poverty. We have illustrated this by the example of Hungary. 16% live in catastrophic flats that are damp and purely insulated, and 9% will never be able to pay for their heating. If we look at Germany, things are not perfect either. In 2016, 333,000, and I take the official figure of the federal government, 330,000 households had their energy supply cut off. This is not correct. Up to 85 million households can, according to the federal government figures, not pay their energy bills, or only in part. 25% of the households in Germany, I repeat, in Germany, have in one or the other way to pay energy costs that they really can't pay, or only with great difficulties. This is a real problem and means that we really need measures, regardless of whether we talk about Germany or Hungary. We really need a definition of energy poverty that is applicable to all countries of the European Union, including my own home country. And I'll stay with Germany. In addition, the electricity prices are continually growing. Between 2002 and 2013, the private electricity prices have doubled. This is enormous because the wages have not doubled. On the contrary, when it comes to industry, the federal government has always been generous, granting very generous rebates. That means that, of course, that the taxpayer will have to pay in the end. Then, of course, advice centres for people in debt, where you can seek advice about how to deal with your private debt. If you look at the situation, the advice centres confirm that there is an increasing trend towards energy poverty, and they said 1 in 3 households has problems to pay their electricity bills. And I think that the first thing we should stand up for, regardless of the country we're talking about, is that energy supply should not be cut off. They should be legally banned everywhere. We also call for a basic contingent of electricity that is for free. This is another issue that we need to address seriously, and we cannot accept that regulated prices and social prices for energy are simply abolished within the internal market. In the negotiations, we will call for a different solution, but at the moment the situation looks pretty bleak. We really need clear markers that show that for certain population groups that are affected by poverty, these tariffs cannot be abolished, but that they should have access to energy at lower prices. We need indicators for energy poverty that are applicable worldwide. We need transparent parameters, and there are publications about the prevalence of energy poverty, and in the member states the group of those in need of protection must be clearly defined. We have to support the consumers in their rights, and this requires in all member states an independent complaint body, so that people can really address the conflicts between citizens and the energy supplier. And real help for people in need are urgently required, and this also implies the transparency of electricity bills. If you look at your bill, you don't really understand why the prices have been rising, so a call for transparency is extremely urgent and necessary. This is why we ask for portals that allow citizens to compare energy costs. This must be absolutely independent. The providers must be independent, and we also have to talk about hidden fees, which need to be combated because they're a real problem for people. And I should like to mention another point that you have already alluded to. Of course, we have to talk about energy efficiency as well. And here I want to say the following. Every private household must have the possibility to conduct energy efficiency measures in their own homes. And measures for energy efficiency should not be borne generally by the people who live in the flats. They may not be a privilege for the rich. What are we to do about energy efficiency measures for poor households? Do we tell them you need to save money or use less electricity or put warmer clothes on. No, we need such measures also for people who cannot afford all this. If we look at Germany, only 2% of the building stock is to be renovated with regard to energy efficiency per year, which is much too little. And then we need to address something else. Energy efficiency measures also create jobs, quite a huge number of jobs. They are a job engine and are both in social and general political terms important. To save energy is important. The possibilities for energy saving must be discussed and the right impulses must be given, but that goes for all households and not only for those who cannot pay their electricity bill. So the access to energy might not be decoupled from the social question. It is neither part of the social question, which apparently solves itself. I mean, you can say you just change the social situation a bit and then the energy poverty problem is solved. This does not work. We also have to talk about energy as a public good which must be accessible to everybody, light and heating in good flats for a dignified life. This is the reason why this coalition here in the Parliament was founded, and it's about all this and nothing less, and this is why this conference is so important. Thank you very much.
Inputs, I think they are all extremely important, and we can see based on your presentation that energy poverty has many causes and that we have to tackle them at the same time. We are unfortunately very late, and I would like maybe just to open a very brief Q&A session. If you have questions, I can maybe take 1 or 2 questions before we start the second panel. So if somebody would like to react, to ask a question. Yes, please.
Yes, it's Violetta Donimaevska, European Commission DG Energy, and it's not a question, it's a comment, and just to say that the Commission is trying to respond to this need for transparency, and we already launched a year ago the Energy Poverty Observatory, as some of people in this room might be aware of. So we are putting some effort into introducing transparency and clarity and having the data available, and we're hoping the observatory will be a success and will be useful for policy making, because ultimately we would like the data. Well, no data, no action, let's put it this way. So we would like to have the data to be able to do something about this politically. Thank you.
Thanks for this. Yes, we are very much aware of this new observatory, and we hope as a coalition to be at least a consulting and part of this new body.
Sorry, one more thing. Since we are at the observatory, the launch of the observatory will be on the 29th of January. So if I could just remind everyone. Thank you.
Yes, Sean, please.
Thanks very much, Sian Jones from European Anti-Poverty Network. Thanks very much for a really rich panel. I think it really is important to bring back the reality on the ground of what this actually means in terms of people's lives, particularly for communities like the Roma community. I just wanted to pick up on the point that Guillaume made at the beginning about the importance of an integrated approach. Because obviously it's very much accepted you need to work on the issue of adequate income, fair prices, as well as energy efficiency, and it's that package of things that need to happen. So I really hope we can focus a little bit more on how that's going to be taken forward. And I'd like to hear also more about the issue of pricing, on regulation of prices, because some countries are actually having to go ahead now to regulate prices because it's just not possible for the market to deliver fair prices for the vulnerable, but to anybody in terms of the package. And I think there's not enough being said about that, because this is a reality when you can have governments like the right-wing governments in UK talking about putting caps on prices because they recognise it's not delivering for people.
Thanks. One of you would like to react to, or Cornelia, if you...
Yeah. We have addressed this issue in the negotiations about the energy market design, where we said regulated prices, at least where the member states have them already, should be maintained. They should not be abolished. You cannot say that the market will find its own rules. We know that this is absolutely not the case. You cannot rely on the market, but especially in the EPP group and in the group of the Liberals, there is still a deeply rooted belief in the market that we have lost a long time. Regulated tariffs are extremely important. We want to see this in the directive, and we have opposed a general deletion of this issue in the directive. So this is the present situation. We pay very much attention to this subject but haven't achieved any results as yet.
I'm going to close this panel, and we are about to start the second one on renovating homes. So I would invite the next speaker to come, and thanks everybody for your presentation and for your input.
Thank you.
I'm very sorry for the name.
No. You just mix the half of the names.
Nice to see you again. How are you? Oops. I don't know where he was. There, sit maybe out on the right side. Yeah. As long as it doesn't have a link that they go and sort those. So what is basically your... I need to get out of here. Okay. After. Yeah. It's fine.
Thank you, my dear.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julien Dijon from Housing Europe, the European Social Housing Federation. We are indeed part of this coalition. And while we talked about price and income in the first panel, so when we had the opportunity to look at the reality of energy poverty, now we're going to focus on the third pillar, the so-called third pillar of this energy poverty triangle, namely the efficiency of homes. Energy efficient homes are certainly one of the key aspects in the discussion, and how to improve the quality, the pace, the scope of renovation is probably one of the key questions in the debate about energy poverty. And we have a panel of great experts from various backgrounds. We have energy experts, we have also policymakers, and we're going to discuss about indeed the role of policy intervention, the role of industry improvement, and the role of rights-based approach in this overall discussion. So we're going to start with Yamina Saheb, who is a senior energy policy analyst at OpenExp, based in Paris, a network of experts on sustainability questions. And Yamina used to work for the Joint Research Centre for the International Energy Agency, so a lot of expertise on on energy, and she's going to set basically the context of the discussion, the challenges that we are facing in terms of renovation, and how we can move forward, particularly using the opportunity of the clean energy package. So, Amina, hopefully the slides are on, and so up to you.
Thank you, Julien, for the introduction, and thanks to the organizer for the opportunity to be here today to share with you our last findings related to energy innovation and energy poverty. Can you go to the next slide, please? When we talk about energy poverty, what we have in mind is basically usually winter energy poverty. This is what we have been used to hear about because energy poverty concept was born in the UK, where they face cold winter. And it was the first country to deregulate everything at the same time. But actually there is also summer fuel poverty. We don't hear too much about it because summer fuel poverty was mainly a concern in the Southern Europe. But today it's not only in Southern Europe, it's also, for example, in Baltic states and even in Central Europe. And it will be in the future more and more concern because of the heat waves that we may have because of the climate change issues. So when we talk about fuel poverty related to housing, we have to keep in mind that we need to be comfortable in winter and in summertime. Otherwise, the consequence of that is health problems, so morbidity, and this can lead to death. So remember when we had the heat waves in 2003, the number of excess deaths we had in France, for example, which is not known to be as a very hot country. We don't have air conditioning in France. We don't even conceive to have air conditioning in our homes, or at least we were not able to conceive it before 2003. But we have more and more air conditioning in south of France, and we have now ventilation in Paris and north of France. So these two important points to keep in mind when we talk about housing fuel poverty. But the other important point about fuel poverty that is completely out of the discussion today is the fuel poverty related to mobility. We have more and more citizens not able to afford public transport. And it's the same category of citizens because usually what happens is that when you are low income, you cannot live in city. It's very hard to have a house that is well located, well connected to public transport. So you end up living in the suburb or far away from the city, from public transport. And in this case, you need to either have your own car or the access to public transport is much more expensive, and the travelling time is much more important than if you are living close to public transport. And the consequence of that is that you cannot travel for your basic social needs. And by basic social needs, we mean for work, for studying, for health issues, for just to be a human being in your society. And the real consequence of that is the exclusion. So basically, when you are low income, you may most probably end up in a fuel poverty situation, housing fuel poverty situation in winter and summertime, discomfort in winter and summertime, which means this will have an impact on your health. And at the same time, you will not be able to afford to travel, to go to the city, to have a job that will maybe give you a hope to get out of your fuel poverty situation. The combination of both are the result of the result of urban and rural development policies. So these policies are not at all in the EU landscape from my understanding. They are at national level. But the main point is that when you combine transport and housing fuel poverty, it's basically double punishment, if not triple punishment, for low-income people. This is what we need to keep in mind when we are talking about fuel poverty. And it will be good in the definition that we will have to highlight mobility, fuel poverty related to mobility at the same time. Can you go to the next slide, please. So now I will focus on the fuel poverty related to housing, because this session is about energy renovation. So there are fuel poverty related to housing. The main drivers are the energy prices, that it went up, and they will continue to go up, because to decarbonize we should not lie to ourselves. Energy prices are not going to go down. The income went down, and the income will go down in the future. We should not lie to ourselves again. And of course all this has an impact because of the housing quality. Our buildings are leaking everywhere in Europe. All our buildings are leaking. Even if you are class A today in Europe, your building is leaking. It's not leaking as much as if you are in class G or F, but it is a leaky building. The problem is that when you are low income and your building is leaking, so basically you are spending a lot of money to heat the outside, the money that you don't have to heat the outside air. And from the Commission report on energy prices and costs, the 2016 version, we know that in almost all EU countries, low income pay basically for their energy expenditures. Almost 1 month of their annual income is spent on energy expenditures. It's a lot of money when you are low income. So in France, for example, it's equivalent to the minimum wage that we have. It's 1,200 euros that low income pay for their energy expenditures. And they pay this without being in comfortable homes. This is what we need to keep in mind. So if they are not paying and being in comfortable homes, they are paying for not being in comfortable homes. And why we are in this situation? Because we don't have in EPPD a requirement to renovate our buildings and to renovate them at zero level. Why the zero level? Because with zero in Paris equals zero in London, equals zero in Barcelona, equals zero in Brussels, equals zero everywhere. And with zero you empower the EU citizens, especially the low income, who need to be empowered. Because the zero energy building is a highly efficient building which produces energy on an annual basis, actually the zero. And if we don't have this requirement in the EPPD, and it's the case today, so this means we will not fight against fuel poverty. In practice, what it means today, given the negotiations at the Parliament, the discussions and the negotiations, it means that if we pass EPPD today without having the requirement to renovate buildings, and it's for all buildings, but it matters really for low income more for the other ones, this means that we are locking Europe in energy injustice forever, because the renovation, what we know is that residential buildings undergo major renovation every 30 years. This means between now and 2050, we have 32 years left. This means that buildings that are renovated today, they are unlikely to be re-renovated again. So in countries like France, for example, 2 weeks ago, we have a proposal from the government to eliminate class F and G. It means that they are locking, if we do that, this means that we will lock low income, we lock France in carbon, and we lock low income in energy poverty forever, because they are not going to be renovated again. So the first thing from policy making perspective is to make sure that EPPD is not passed without having the zero energy requirement for existing buildings. And we have to keep in mind that the driver of all the changes that we have in Europe for buildings have been was EPPD. So for new buildings, before we had the requirement to be at zero energy level, it was just not thinkable in our member states to have such requirement in our regulation. Today we have it. Today no one is questioning if there is an extra cost to build a new building at zero level in our member states. They are all having their prototypes. Why? Because it's required in the EPPD. So if we miss up EPPD, we miss up the energy justice in Europe. That's the first thing. The second thing in terms of policy making is the Smart Finance for Smart Building initiative, or basically all the financing schemes that we have. Currently, you could get financed for your energy renovation to conduct shallow renovation. The vast majority, less than 1% of the projects have been well renovated. Most of the projects with public money, most of the renovation work, the energy renovation market exists thanks to the public finance. Otherwise, it would not have existed, actually. So, but this public finance is allowed to be used for shallow renovation. So basically, we use public finance to lock low-income people in energy poverty and to lock Europe in carbon. So we need policymakers to get EPPD right for energy, for existing buildings, and to get the requirement that public finance will never be used in Europe to lock Europe in energy injustice and in carbon. The last pillar to get out of energy poverty is to reduce the renovation cost. And you will see in the following slide that the vast majority, 70% of the renovation cost that we pay today, is due to the inefficiency of the industry. So basically, to give you an example, can you go to the next slide, please? To give you an example, today to renovate to the zero energy level, you need approximately 1,200. Let's put it 1,000 to make it easier for everyone. So if you pay 1,000 euros per square meter, you are basically paying 700 euros because our industry is still working like in the 50s. It's an industry from the 20th century. In these 700 euros, there are 500 euros that are due completely, there is no need for policy intervention there, to industry inefficiency. The inefficient intervention of the industry for renovation. And then we have 20% which is shared between the inefficiency of the policies, like I said, that we allow for shallow renovation financing with public money. This is an efficiency in the policies. Of course, industry is happy with that because they make profit, and they renovate, but they don't renovate. There is business for them, but we don't solve the societal issues that we have. So basically, to finish from my side, my hope is that the Parliament will be able to make the EPPD the driver for the energy innovation for zero. So you pass this in the EPPD and you fix the financing thing, and then industry will have to reduce the cost. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Yamina, for this clear and quite strong proposal and also findings. And there's almost a question to Teresa Griffin, but before Teresa is able to answer to this point in particular, I would like to give the floor to Takis Gregorio from Greenpeace, because Takis will also refer to another reality when we talk about buildings. Buildings is not only about efficient buildings, it's about buildings where are able to produce energy. And indeed, when Yamina talks about the zero energy buildings, I suppose you mean the net zero energy buildings, which means that it's not only about having a passive house, but it's also about having the ability to produce energy with the buildings where we live. So, Takis, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much for this brief introduction. Indeed, from my part, I would like to touch a little bit on how people can produce their own power, and especially vulnerable families, and how we can link this to the debate about social fair energy transition. Up until now, we say that social fair energy transition means everybody should have access to energy. I would like to put this in a slightly different frame. For us, socially fair energy transition is making sure that no one's left behind. Next, please. So have a look at what's going on in Greece now. We got a picture from Hungary, from Germany. Also, this is Greece. Now, part of the problem is that in Greece, we have one of the worst building stocks in Europe. So 7 out of 10 buildings either completely lack or they have inefficient insulation. Now, with the economic crisis and the stagnation of the Greek economy, the result is that 4 out of 10 households face difficulties in paying up their electricity bills, and that's official Greek statistics. And I know there's a joke here in Brussels about Greek statistics, but I can assure you this is an accurate picture. So, what's the policy to deal with that? Right now we have a social tariff program, which is basically a consumption subsidy, and nearly 700,000 households fall into this category. Now, according to the latest public utility announcement, half of these households that already under the social tariff program can still not pay their bills. And although this program is supported with 80 million euros that all the other consumers are paying. So please remember that number. I will come back to that. Next, please. And another. All right. So basically, there's a choice here for policymakers. One is continue on the path of consumption subsidies, but that doesn't change much. For one thing, it supports the current energy system. This is money that ends up to big power producers. Second, they don't really lift households out of poverty. They perpetuate their status. They are in need of more of help all the time. But if we could just invest in the households instead of making sure the money ends up to big producers, if we could just invest in these households, make them part of the energy transition, make them prosumers, make them energy citizens or active customers. I think the jargon nowadays is active customers. Not only we enhance the democratization process of the energy sector, but we make sure that these households get a fair chance in life. They find dignity back, at least as it concerns their energy poverty status. Next, please. So this is what we did a couple of years ago. We proposed, we made a study and proposed this to the Greek government, how they could help 1 million households over a 10-year period of time. Now, we wanted to prove with this study that there are already resources available. You basically have to reallocate these resources. And this is crucial for a country like Greece that relies on bailout assistance to face with economic crisis. There's still money available if you can just relocate them to something with higher priority. 700,000 renovations we proposed and another 300 households with social solar. That means you go install a PV system there, they cover something like 70% of the power needs and you don't have to intervene again. These poor families have become prosumers. They can produce their own energy. Next one, please. Now, obviously that didn't happen, okay? Governments are slow to react in this kind of new ideas. So we basically started working with municipalities. But I have to give credit to the Greek government for a couple of things. For one thing, really, they have produced two amazing pieces of legislation. One is virtual net metering and the other one is energy communities. And I will have to say one thing about virtual net metering because it's a game changer. It's a key technology. Most of you know net metering is you put panels, you produce your own power. If you produce more on sunny days, you give some to the grid, you take it back at night, you pay the grid for this service. Now, virtual net metering is exactly the same, with the only difference that you don't have to have the solar panels on your house. They can be in another building. They can be in a piece of land. They can be part of a community solar project. And this is important because in a country like Greece, most of the people live in multi-apartment buildings. They simply don't have the space for the solar panels. And especially poor families, they all live in multi-apartment buildings. So unless we have virtual net metering, you're still self-consumer. You don't sell the power. You self-consume. Whatever is produced by your solar panels that are somewhere else, is deducted from your electricity bill. It's credited to your electricity bill. So this is what we try to do now with municipalities. Municipalities are taking the lead and they're using school rooftops to install solar panels, make small energy communities, and with virtual net metering, give this power to local poor families and make them have free solar power. Next, please. But obviously that's not enough for us. So a few weeks back, we went back to the government with our 300,000 households proposal, updated, and we said to them, look, you did the virtual net metering law and energy communities. I mean, you have the tools. Now it's the time to do that. So, again, a 10-year program, imagine this. 2 kilowatts installed capacity per household, which can cover 70 or 80% of their electricity needs. We don't go for 100%. We leave room for energy efficiency. This is in line with near zero energy buildings, so you can do all the renovations and go to near zero energy building. But it's a significant help. This can be in the form of single-family systems or community solar. And the cost for a 10-year program for 300,000 households is peanuts. It's 40 to 45 million annually. Remember, the social policy now is 80 million euros annually for 700,000 people. So it's the same, if not slightly cheaper, this one. Next, please. Yeah, okay, these are the benefits. This should be obvious to end. Okay, another important thing in Greece. All of these poor families owe money to the public utility. The public utility announced that more than 2 billion euros is owned by customers. So that's another great way to pay back the public utility. So it should be the public utility, the government through the public utility that should be doing that. Next, please. And we know it's working very good because we have already done it as Greenpeace. Now, as of 3 years ago, we went to the island of Rhodes and we helped there 8 families that they were really poor, I can assure you about that. We helped them get their own solar panels. And this is, what you see is like the electricity bill. There's a logo of the public utility. I don't know if you can see 0 kilowatt hours. That's the consumption, sorry, that's the energy the public utility bills them. 0 really. And you can see them smiling in the picture. And obviously, I mean, we help them, but they're still poor, okay? I mean, it's not that they became rich. But concerning energy poverty, they got their dignity back. And I guess they can smile in the picture. Next one, please. And we're not inventing the wheel. This is already happening in progressive states in the US. So either it's single-family systems, like in San Francisco, next please, or multi-housing in Colombia, or multi-housing in California, or community solar in Colorado. There are programs in place that help low-income families overcome their energy poverty status and be part of the social fair transition. They are not left behind. They don't feel abandoned. They don't feel threatened by this transition that's happening. So quickly to conclude. Just energy transition, I would like to correct this to socially fair energy transition, as has been pointed out to me. The correct term is socially fair energy transition, the transition that concerns all the economy. We should make sure that no one's left behind. We need to, okay, everybody knows about the €1 billion that currently go to fossil fuels. So it's not that we need to find new money when we're talking about energy efficiency, renovating our buildings and making vulnerable households prosumers. We can tap this money. It's just about taking this money from one place and putting them where it really matters. So we need our policy, social policy, to shift from consumption subsidies to invest in the households, in the people, not in the big power companies that are the receiving end of this kind of consumption subsidies policies. And we see an increased role of social solar together with energy efficiency. We need to go to 100% renewable energy in the next 30 years. Okay, we all know that. So it is a matter of helping vulnerable households producing their own energy together with energy efficiency. And of course, none of this will matter if we don't get a very good and ambitious winter package. For example, right now, we all know that winter package at the Council is under attack. It's getting weakened day by day. We know that the Spanish government and the German government, for example, they don't like virtual net metering. Or there are some governments that they would like to weaken the ability of renewable energy self-consumers to even connect to the grid. So this is a battle that we all have to face together. But really, this is one battle that really matters if we are to turn to a social fair energy transition and help eradicate energy poverty in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Takis. Indeed, it seems that probably the solution is about finding the right mix between energy efficiency and renewable, which is also the right mix between policy intervention, industry improvement, and which also means that policy makers have a key role to play, probably in promoting this right mix. Now, Teresa Griffin, one of the leading voices on consumer-led energy transition, on fair energy transition, very involved in the current negotiation on the clean energy package. Teresa, and the floor is yours to give your view on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Julien. Firstly, there are many dear friends in this room, so thank you. 3 years ago, we didn't actually hear a lot of discussion about energy poverty, and now actually it's on everybody's lips, but it's about delivery. And it's clean energy for all citizens. And we have to remember the objective is clean energy for all. And coming back to some of the points that my colleagues have just made, one of the objectives of the Energy Observatory, Energy Poverty Observatory, is exactly the exchange of good practice and not reinventing the wheel. So if there is a fantastic project somewhere, let's make sure that we get it to our poorest communities right across Europe. Projects from around the globe. So that's one of its fundamental objectives. To pick up what Yamina was saying, when I did my first workshop on energy poverty in the S&D group and our manifesto is on the website if anybody hasn't seen it. Being a Northern MEP, and I represent Liverpool and Manchester, therefore in public I never talk about football. But being a Northern MEP, I said exactly what you said. I said nobody in 2016 should have to choose between heating or eating. And 2 hands went up, and it was a Spanish MEP and it was a Maltese MEP that said, Teresa, do you understand in the summer we have elderly people and long-term sick people who are confined to their homes dying because they cannot afford to put on their air conditioning? So the strapline became and has remained, nobody should have to choose between heating, cooling or eating. And energy, just to completely pick up and agree with Cornelia, energy is not a commodity, it is a basic social right. And if you look at this legislation and what we're trying to do through that lens, it actually changes the narrative and the perspective. I believe that, and I tried to do it in New Deal for Consumers, which was one of my files, that consumers should automatically be told the cheapest tariff for them. It's not on the onus for the consumer to actually go and look at comparison websites. And people I represented when I was a councillor in Liverpool didn't have access to computers easily. They should automatically be told the cheapest tariff for them, and nobody should be terminated who is a vulnerable consumer. That is absolutely outrageous. But the reality is we've got the fight of our lives on our hands. I've never seen E-Trade committee as packed as it was last week. We got a renewable target of 35. Huge tribute to all my colleagues. It was a compromise. Of course, we would have sooner higher. You know that. But we did that. But energy efficiency, for every 1% increase in the energy efficiency target, 3 million homes can be renovated and 7 million people lifted out of energy poverty. We wanted 40%, much more ambitious than the Commission. No disrespect to people from the Commission here. We won 40% by one vote. Probably, thank you. But by one vote, hence sleepless nights. And I have to pay tribute. Benedict is here from the Greens. It was great work with the Greens. And as for Dario Tamburrano, Dario actually left his newborn baby to come and vote on that day. So I think we should hear it for Dario. Thank you. He did return very quickly to her, and I want to see the pictures later. But in terms of governance, we've got a vote on Thursday morning to answer your questions about policy makers. And it really is on a knife edge. I believe that we've got very good compromises between the Greens, EFDD, ALDE and the S&D. But when we're talking to the EPP and the ECR about energy poverty, they don't want definitions of energy poverty. You know, actually, does it exist? Well, yes, of course it exists. And if a particular member state has solved it, and I don't believe that for a second, as somebody said earlier, there will be pockets of deprivation in that region and in that country, no matter what the overall figures say, which is why we're looking for specific distributive geographic analysis in energy poverty. I would have sooner the definition of energy poverty been in an article. It will be in a recital, but it's there and we will build on it, and we will build on it in everything that we do in trialogue. But we have in trialogue a fight on our hands with Council and Member States. You know, this is too difficult, or actually, you know, UK, oh, we're fine, it doesn't exist. It does exist. In my region, I have hundreds of thousands of people having to choose whether they clothe their kids or they pay exorbitant energy bills. And we have to bring the pricing down, and we have to make energy companies more accountable. The sadness for me is the disaster of Brexit, because by working together as 28 member states, we can actually hold the producers to account and actually say that citizens should be prosumers. Citizens should be able to connect to the grid. Citizens should be able to supplement their income through this revolution. Clean energy for all. We know that the EU is currently paying €1 billion per day on its energy bill and imports 53% of the energy it consumes. We know, as you said, that citizens are paying increasingly high energy bills, and 54 million people are affected by energy poverty, 14.5% of households. And, as you said, it's not just an energy issue, it's an economic issue, it's a social issue, it's a transport issue, it's a children's health issue. There was a piece of legislation in the UK, I don't know if there's anybody from the UK here, called Every Child Matters. And rather than saying, we've got the Transport Committee here, we've got ITRE here, we've got ENVI here, we've got food here, what that piece of legislation said was you should look at the life of a child from when it gets up in the morning to when it goes to bed at night. Does it have enough clothes? Is its home heated or cooled enough? Is it getting decent food at home, or is it getting, as it used to happen at my daughter's school, Kinder eggs in the playground? Or is she or he getting something at a school club? And then you say, in the winter, as that child goes to school, are the roads adequately lit? Is there a lollipop woman or man to help them? And you go on and on and on until that child goes to bed at night. So you're thinking about transport, you're thinking about food, you're thinking about education, you're thinking about street lighting. And in a way, we've got to look at energy the same way, because this directly impacts upon people's lives. And also, we can't say climate change on one bit and energy on the other. The two are inextricably linked. For all these reasons, we need to be more ambitious on energy efficiency and renewable energy. And by goodness, Greens, EFTD, ALDE and S&D, we need every vote that we've got on Thursday morning, because if this falls apart in governance, which is the overall framework, we're in real trouble. I think we can do it, but we need every vote. Energy efficiency needs to be cross-border and cross-parliament committees, industrial policy, development of products, transport and buildings. While action needs to be taken across all of these sectors, building stock at the moment seems to be the lowest hanging fruit. And we have to, and I came from a meeting just on this now, we have to include our rental sector in this. It can't just be home owners. And as you said, our poorest people live in the leakiest houses. The building sector is the largest energy consumer in Europe. Its share of total financial consumption was 40%, making buildings responsible for 36% of the EU's total CO2 emissions. Energy renovation of buildings is a win-win for the EU economy as a whole. It aids our poorest citizens. It creates jobs. And if we want to meet our climate target, we need 80% of the existing building stock to be refurbished, the equivalent of one building every minute for the next 40 years. Ambitious action on building renovation and the recognition of energy efficiency as the first fuel. The best energy is the energy we don't use in the first place. And the double whammy of this, or as you said, the triple whammy of this, is our poorest end up paying more because they live with the worst housing conditions. We have to have a joined-up policy on this, and this is what we've been trying to do through a coalition, and I have to pay tribute to my colleagues in ALDE, EFTD and the Greens, to actually treating this as an entire package, not as individual bits of legislation. But consumers and investors will only respond favourably to energy efficiency and renewable energy sources if these are presented in a way that offers them values. And Cornelia is absolutely right. There is a huge distrust. We need advice on the ground. We need citizens' advice bureaus. We need interlocutors, which enables local people to become involved in this stuff. It's got to be bottom up. It can't be top down. In the UK, sustainability issues have become increasingly important in the property market. The big six in the UK don't like me a lot. I don't care. It's actually about delivering for local people. But we have to accelerate, as you said, the market transition towards zero energy buildings. We're saying nearly zero energy at the moment because that's what we are, but zero energy. My objective is to get this message on energy efficiency across. We are getting the message on energy poverty across, but it's not yet with every political party in this House, and it's certainly not yet with every member state. So we have a job of work to do. We, as politicians, will ensure with Cornelia that we are ambitious and we do the best that we can on Thursday. The European Parliament should be leading, urging member states to develop investment plans and identify easily, flexibly, easily to access finance, targeting energy efficiency in buildings in both the public and private sectors that benefits our poorest citizens. Energy is not a commodity. Energy is a basic social right.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Also, thank you for the insights on the discussions on Thursday. And I suppose a lot of us will be very busy from now on to make sure that Thursday will be a good outcome for everyone. Just one or two questions, very briefly, because we are running out of time. So, who wants to ask a question to the panel?
We've got to be optimistic. We can do this, team. We just need all of us to work together.
Any questions to Sean? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, again, Sean from EAPN. Yeah, I mean, thanks very much. Really interesting interventions, I think, very varied. I think the key question is, it's absolutely right, it's a double whammy to get energy, clean energy, to ensure that people in poverty actually get reduced bills and also more energy efficiency. But how do you make sure that the people themselves benefit from the initiatives? And I think that's really crucial. So it's the issue of both people who are owner-occupiers, but most of them are in rented accommodation or in social housing, to ensure that they get the energy efficiency ones, but also they don't get the costs passed on to them with increased rents. And I think that is one of the major challenges. It's also the reason why lots of groups are resistant to actually supporting energy efficiency, because they just think it's going to raise their rents and they can't afford it. So I think you've got to look at the whole package. You've got to look at impact assessment on these things to make sure that the people themselves benefit, the poorer people.
Thank you. I see that Takis wants to... Yes.
Very briefly, I mean, this is a very important and serious thing. I mean, most of the vulnerable families, they live in rented houses. So virtual net metering can solve that, because when you have like some panels associated with their electricity bills, no matter where they live, and if they change a house, they still own the panels that are in a community park. So wherever they go, even if they change to rented houses, they can still have the same discount in their electricity. But also for energy efficiency, I've seen good reports recently that have ideas on how to tackle that. The Hendrik Böll Institute recently they had an excellent report on energy poverty, and there are schemes that can actually lock the owner and the renter in an agreement where the owner makes intervention, makes investment, and some of this benefit returns to the renter and to the owner together. So these are crucial questions, but I'm sure if we all work together, as Ms. Griffin said, we can find solutions.
Yamina, very briefly.
Yeah, very quickly on this point. The current energy renovation cost is very high. That's why the energy savings currently do not pay for the renovation cost, and that's why we end up that it's included. We have an increase in the rent, etc. And the energy renovation cost is high, as I said, 70% because of the inefficiency, the low productivity of the industry that is intervening. And to push industry to improve its productivity, this is where we need policymakers. They need to stop financing this extra cost that goes to compensate for the inefficiency of the industry. And actually, who is paying for this extra cost that we should not be paying for is usually the low income. So this is why, if we have in the policy requirements that we stop financing shallow renovation and we finance only zero renovation at the cost, because from our estimates we know that we can do it from different projects, that we can do today zero energy renovation around €300 everywhere in Europe. €300 today you can deliver only shallow renovation, and with zero then you empower the citizens. And it's very important from low income perspective, because this is the only way to make sure that the clean energy package will be clean for all of us. Otherwise, as it is today, the clean energy package will be accessible only for those of us who are not low income. Thank you.
Thank you. And interestingly, I came from a meeting earlier today when I was raising this absolute point. And Dario and Claude and I in governance, that's why we have been fighting to hang on to a definition of vulnerable consumers, and the fact that the entire package has got to be of benefit to vulnerable consumers. Because you will remember that the original smart metering in the UK was a disaster for the poorest people. They ended up paying more. And it's the issue of trust, good information on the ground, and it's also why all of us working on this package have been actually saying that local communities, local authorities, local mayoralties are crucial as being part of the delivery of this on the ground. Because if it just happens at a great grand Green Deal at a UK national level, it's not going to work. It's got to be in each member state delivered locally as well.
Thank you very much. Okay. It's difficult. I just look at the organizer with if we are allowed to have a no. Yeah, I think we need to stop because we still have 3 MEPs who are supposed to conclude the session. Thank you very much to all the speakers with me today, and we'll be in touch for the discussion on everything.
I'm sure we'll be hearing from you all.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bon, I think without further ado, we'll seemingly move into the concluding sessions of today. And I have to say this panel for me represents the spirit as well of the whole community that come together here, because we heard energy poverty is clearly a pan-European issue. Some people thought this is something that only southern eastern Europeans might need to worry about, but we clearly heard examples from Germany, from the UK, that this is prevailing across the continent. And I think the right response to that is as well a cross-party coalition to tackle that. So I'm very happy that over the past month the Right to Energy Coalition established good working relations across the different parties, and I think as a result of that we're sitting here. And I'm happy to first give the floor to Benedikt Javor, and then we'll move further to Xavier and Dario to my right.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the Right to Energy for All coalition to organise this event, as it's a very timely issue to be discussed here in the European Parliament, especially as in the previous panel there was a lot of talk about different issues, but I believe that from this perspective of this House, what is really important that we are in the middle of the discussions of the clean energy package. The outcome are clearly not fixed yet. There are some very promising developments, like the vote which was mentioned already by Teresa in the ITRA committee, it was almost 2 weeks ago, on the Energy Efficiency Directive, and the outcome is really much better than it was expected by some. I don't know who. I always hope that we can achieve something really good, but of course there were some negative signs that it could be or could have been extremely difficult. Finally, we are there. We have a very ambitious Energy Efficiency Directive position from the ITRA committee, but of course the work is still ongoing, so there is a lot of things to do. Energy poverty and the access to energy, I think it's really an important issue, and as you mentioned, perhaps it's more important in the southern and eastern part of the Union, but it exists in the core countries, and some marginalized groups are tending or having a good chance to live in energy poverty. According to estimations, somewhere around 80 to 100 million European citizens are living in energy poverty, which is 1/5 of the population of the EU. So it's not something, it's not a minor issue for a few number of people, but it's really something the EU must face with, and the EU must do something with that. I agree with Teresa Griffin that it's getting higher and higher on the agenda of the European institutions, and it's a very good sign. And there is much more talk about the issue than before. But sometimes it's extremely difficult to really have effective discussions, as this is a cross-cutting issue, and the silo approach, which sometimes very natural, or we do it in the legislative work, does not really help us to understand the complexity of the issue of energy poverty, and also it's not easy to give the proper answer to a very complex issue where a single individual piece of legislation is not able to solve the problem. We need a much more complex approach. And also, just to mention, I mentioned the EED, but of course we have to talk about the EPBD as well, so the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, because the two together can better contribute for the fight against energy poverty. And also, I completely agree, it was mentioned that it's not simply a housing problem, but mobility, transport is also must be there. So there are a lot of promising developments. Still, here let me start with a kind of or some negative examples. And in the clean energy package, the Commission calls the member states to reduce the cost of energy for the citizens. But I think it's very important how the member states understand this call, and very often we see that some member states apply a populism-driven solution, and with or they introduce fixed administrative prices, which perhaps can protect some consumer groups, the most vulnerable consumer groups, for a while, but on the long run and from a systemic approach, I think it's exactly the wrong way to go. And the people finally don't need really cheap energy, but they need low energy bills. And if we help them to consume less energy, and that's the way we can decrease the energy bills, I think that's the systemic approach, and that's the good solution. Also, I have to mention that when we talk about energy poverty and the solutions, especially energy efficiency, we receive some criticism from some of our colleagues saying that, okay, you are too ambitious, it's not realistic, it kills the economy, it costs too much. And we have to make absolutely crystal clear here, and also at the plenary session of the European Parliament, that energy efficiency, which is the best way to relieve energy poverty, is not an obligation, a costly need which is forced to the member states by the evil European Commission, but it is the best opportunity for the member states and for the society, because it has a lot of long-term benefits, including a decent green job creation, as energy efficiency investments keep the local capital in the local economy, as normally energy or building renovation are carried out by small and medium-sized enterprises. So it has a lot of benefits besides the cut of energy bills, pollution reduction, health effects, and so on and so forth. And lastly, as I think the time mostly has gone, I would like to mention perhaps two things very shortly. One is both of them are related to the financing question. I think the money is there. And again, this is not a question. Both the public and the private money is there. I heard very often from the industry and from financial institutions saying that they believe that an ambitious energy efficiency directive and ambitious targets and investing in the area is a very good business, and it should be done. What they really need is a stable, predictable regulation. And if the European Commission is able to provide this, then the private money is there and it will be invested in the area. And also we have to talk about that perhaps we have to find some innovative ways of financing. The traditional approach to financing projects is not the most suitable for energy efficiency investments. So both on the level of the regulation and on the financing, we have to be very open-minded to cooperate with the local communities. And there were some examples from Hungary, where NGOs can cooperate with local Roma communities to set up energy efficiency and renewable projects, and these are some innovative approaches. But also in financing, we have to very closely and strongly cooperate with the local community to find the best way how to finance energy efficiency investments. And the second issue is the public part of the money. There is a lot of public money spent on the field of energy in Europe. Sometimes I feel that there is too much money spent on energy issues in Europe, but it is spent in the wrong way. And finally, I believe that the European funds and European financial schemes should concentrate much more on sustainability projects, on clean energy and energy efficiency investments. Energy efficiency should be considered as a first fuel and also should be considered as an infrastructural investment. And it's not only the cohesion policy sources, but we have to combine the European Commission sources like cohesion policy sources with the European Investment Bank and EBRD financing as well, to build up a flexible and proper system to reach the most vulnerable households and the families most in need, to take them on board, because I believe that finally there is a huge risk that the energy transition, the energy revolution is happening in Europe. It's not a choice if we do it or not. It's happening, but the risk is not that it might not happen. The risk is that some parts of Europe, geographically and socially, could be part of this energy revolution, and some other parts of Europe, geographically and socially, could be left behind and they cannot jump on the running train. And that's something we should prevent, and to make it sure that each and every European citizen are able to be there. They have the opportunity and the right to energy and to get the money to be together with the fellow European citizens to make the energy revolution a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benedek, for this really pan-European plaidoyer, and you already hinted to some financial solutions that are already on the table. I think that is quite useful to consider. Let's hear from Xavier.
Okay, so thanks everybody for being here, and thanks also for the invitation, and for sure thanks for the efforts of this coalition, not only with this event, also with all the work made before, focusing in this clean energy package and in the work now the Parliament is achieving. I think if this energy package of the Commission is called clean energy package, clean energy for all, we have to consider, or to start considering, that the access to energy is an essential right for the people, and not only a thing based or a market issue, I think. And for this, it is necessary to talk about energy poverty, of course, to talk very clear of forbidding the energy cuts to people who can't pay the bills. It's essential to talk about fair prices, and also we cannot also forget the right of people to self-consumption. So for sure this energy package is a good opportunity to introduce these demands and these debates in the energy legislations, and I think that we three have made good progresses for this energy efficiency directive, in which we three participate as a member of the Parliament. For example, the target, the 40% target, binding national target, as it has been mentioned, I think is a good achieve, and we must now work for maintaining it. And also the reference to a significant quantity of energy efficiency measures must be done or attend energy poverty and households. So I think these are good progresses that we have achieved, and now is the moment to install that in the future legislation. But talking about the right to energy, I think that, and to open more the scope, I think it's also good to have a look to the local initiatives and how from the EU framework we can help for these local initiatives, taking into account that the local level, it's the level closer to the citizens and to the citizens' demands, no? And well, for example, to bring the experiences in Spain, in the last municipal elections that take place in 2015, the progressive forces of Podemos, Izquierda Unida and Equo Greens, we won some important cities in Spain, cities that now are known as the cities of change. And well, I think that good progress have been made also from these cities. For example, Barcelona is a very well-known example. They have promoted a 100% renewable local energy company, and also from the energy advice points, which are points or offices to attend the citizens' demands. They have attended more than 6,000 people, and only applying the Catalonian law against energy poverty, which I think is very progressive, they have avoided more than 4,000 cut-off of energy source. And well, it's not only something happening in Barcelona, fortunately. There are other cities with good examples. For example, Cádiz. In Cádiz, they had from the past a public energy company, and now they have implemented the first alternative social bond against energy poverty, which I can agree that it's not a sufficient measure only to create bonds, But also in Cadiz they have implemented an energy transition platform with the implication of authorities, NGOs and for sure citizens. So I think these are important achievements that we can get and implement in a local level, but it's still a big road in front of us to push these initiatives also from the EU framework. And well, I can agree also with Mr. Jabor that and now we have to face the issue of the public resources, the money, the budget that we can start mobilizing to push the energy transition and the energy efficiency measures. And I think it's a good moment, these energy package discussions, to push for to use or spend people's money in energy transition against use this money for new fossil fuels infrastructures. And well, for example, in the next months we are going to vote in the Parliament the projects of common interest, which are 53 projects of common interest will be of gas, like for example the Southern Gas Corridor. This is a lot of public money that we don't have to throw it to the bin, to the basket. We have to spend this money to energy transition and for sure energy efficiency measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xavier. I think that shows as well the examples that you highlighted that exist on municipality level, on city level, the value of having parliamentarians rooted with their country knowledge and bringing that to the pan-European parliamentary debate. I think that is as well a way that we can inform the policies that are made for a pan-European audience, but coming from the knowledge and experience from the national and local. I think that's very good. So closing with Dario Tamburano, please.
Thank you. I am very proud of many of the colleagues that I've met at the beginning of this parliamentary term. Indeed, we found many allies, people of goodwill. Apart from the groups, the flags, the political parties, we need to look at the targets. We started a common path, starting from the first vote on the New Deal for energy consumers in 2015, where MEP Griffin did a lot. And there we set the basis for a new legislative process asking to actually go through a real energy transition. And for such energy transition that can actually be citizen-centered. This is a difficult path. There are many forces in the European Parliament that are well aware of how much such transition is needed. We are not talking about transition towards renewable energy only, but this is a social transition as well, and the future of Europe is at stake. So far, I believe that Europe is not enough citizen-centered. I am afraid that most of its policies are actually based on the principle of finance and free market. Maybe we forgot where we come from and what we are made of. We are made of water, energy and material. And energy comes from food. We stock energy into our body. We are in a way comparable to energy. And we should never forget this point. And I actually hope that this path that already started and that sometimes brings good news, sometimes not so good news, and sometimes really with a tiny majority we manage to achieve some results. I mean, we are partially satisfied with our action, but we know that this is not enough. sometimes we are maybe late, we're lagging behind. For example, when we talk about the building directive, we believe that there the concept of smart buildings is too much at the center of the legislation, because we tend to forget all the equipment which is also part of such building and which as all objects will not be working forever. So we see that we lack stability in the long term in this energy efficiency. Plus, let's move to the Stability Pact. It's like a financial dogma. In our vote, we ask that investment in energy in efficiency are not part of the Stability Pact. We believe that this could lead to great results, great outcomes, if we actually were able to make a new economic deal that is connected to energy. Unfortunately, this amendment was not approved by 3 votes only. Maybe we will not be able to pass the amendment when we are going to table it again at the plenary session. Maybe time is not ripe yet, but I'm sure that we are making good progress. And I believe that we are ready to bring up again issues concerning the dignity of women, of men and women, which is transport, social rights, food, energy and all the basic needs. My colleagues who are here today with me were not politicians before, and their example shows that citizens can actually become part of the institutions and make the difference. Why am I here? Well, when for the first time I was able to purchase a house, I asked my buildings if I could put a photovoltaic panel on the roof. And unfortunately, citizens were not really aware of what I was asking for, and the law was not even in favor of what I wanted to do. Instead, today we have economic and cultural resources that are untapped in Europe. So at the time I was unable to put this photovoltaic panel, but I took this battle and I brought it here until the European Parliament. This was what moved me to become involved in politics, to help energy transition, which can actually benefit 500 million people in Europe, and that can be of benefit for all the global population. I believe that altogether we can make it. We have already attained something, and certainly there are still many issues to solve, and I think that many of these issues will also be discussed during the next parliamentary term. But what really matters is that citizens must be aware of what energy means and must be aware of who they cast their vote for, because this inefficiency sometimes means one vote only, and this would have an impact throughout the continent. So this is the end of my speech. I would like to thank all the participants.
Very much appreciated to now know why you're sitting here in Brussels, and as well, no, I'm really grateful for you putting the whole discussion into perspective. You know, why is it at our heart to deal with energy poverty? It's because we want to see every European citizen being able to live a decent and dignified life, and to have access to energy and live decent life is at the core of it. So I think you stretched already to the ongoing debate of the future of Europe, and we would like to see that putting the citizens at the core and the social well-being of the citizens in the package of the future of Europe is something that we want to work together with you. And so with that, just to let you know that the Right to Energy Coalition will not end with the winter package being signed, so we remain vigilant on pushing this agenda, which we have put up with the these couple of demands. You, Xavier and Dario, you mentioned some of them that will be discussed, but some of them are definitely more long-term demands, like the human right to energy, and we remain working on that, and hopefully with our good colleagues and allies in the Parliament. Thank you.